Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something most history books kind of gloss over: the lives of women who worked in Victorian brothels. I know, sounds weird for a bedtime story, but honestly, it's a fascinating slice of forgotten history about real women just trying to survive. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to Victorian London, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done, so congratulations. You just woke up in London, 1857, the peak of the Victorian era. It's early morning, maybe 5 or 6, and you're not in some fancy four-poster bed. You're lying on a slightly lumpy horsehair mattress with a thin woolen blanket pulled over you. The sheets aren't fresh. They're changed once a week at best, and they carry the faint scent of cheap lavender water that doesn't quite mask the mustiness beneath. The room is chilly. Coal for the small fireplace is strictly rationed, especially in the morning hours. The walls are covered in faded floral wallpaper, peeling slightly at the corners where dampness has seeped in. There's a persistent smell that hits your nose. A mixture of coal smoke from thousands of chimneys, the nearby Thames with its distinct aroma of mud and sewage, and something sweeter and more chemical, the perfumes and cosmetics that are tools of the trade here. You're in a room at the back of a brothel in the Haymarket area of London. Not the worst establishment, not by a long shot, but certainly not one of the high-class ones either. You share this small room with another woman. She's still asleep on the other narrow bed, her breathing deep and steady. Shifting slightly, you feel the springs of the mattress creak beneath you. You stretch your legs, pointing your toes, feeling that tension and then the relief as you relax again. That's nice. Just taking a moment before the day begins. Outside, London is already awake. You hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones, the rattle of cartwheels, and the first street vendors beginning their calls. "Fresh bread!" someone shouts from a few streets away. The voice echoes between the tall buildings. "This is your life, Mary. They call you here, though that's not the name your mother gave you. You've been at this house for nearly 2 years now, which makes you something of a fixture. You've seen girls come and go. Some moved up to better houses. Some disappeared back to the poverty they came from. Some fell ill and never recovered. You sit up slowly, letting the blanket pool around your waist. The floorboards are cold against your bare feet as you reach for the woolen shawl hanging on the bedpost and wrap it around your shoulders. Nice and snug. That feels better. On the small table between the beds sits a chipped ceramic pitcher and basin. The water inside has a thin film of ice on top. Winter in London is brutal. You break it with your finger, the cold water stinging your skin before splashing your face. The shock of it fully wakes you, your breath catching for a moment before steadying again. Now let's talk about how you ended up here, in this room, in this life, because the story might not be what you'd expect. You weren't kidnapped or sold into this work as a child, though that happened to some girls, especially the very young ones. You weren't seduced and abandoned by some gentleman, left pregnant and destitute, though that too was a common enough tale. No, your path was more mundane and in many ways more representative of how most women found themselves in this profession. You were a seamstress, a good one, with nimble fingers and a keen eye for detail. But there were hundreds like you in London, thousands even, all competing for the same poorly paid work. The British Quarterly once noted that compared to the drudgery of a dressmaker's apprentice, factory work was mere play. And they weren't wrong. You would work 14, sometimes 16 hours a day, straining your eyes in poor light, your fingers cracked and bleeding in winter. And for what? Starvation wages that barely kept a roof over your head. You lean back against the wall now, feeling its solid support behind you. Taking a deep breath, you roll your shoulders, feeling some of the tension release. That's better. Just easy and relaxed now. You remember the turning point clearly. It was winter, 3 years ago. You hadn't eaten in 2 days. The room you rented was unheated, and you could see your breath misting in the air as you worked frantically to finish a commission that might pay enough for a week's lodging. Your fingers were so numb you kept pricking them with the needle, leaving tiny spots of blood on the fine white linen. A girl you knew, Jane, came to visit. You'd worked together once. She looked different, healthier, better fed, wearing a wool dress that, while not fashionable by upper-class standards, was clean and warm and well-made. She brought food, actual hot food, a meat pie still steaming in its wrapping, and sat with you while you devoured it, trying not to seem as desperate as you felt. "There's a place," she said finally. "A house off Haymarket. The madam is strict but fair. No funny business, no cruelty. 2 meals a day and a decent bed. Medical checks weekly." She paused, watching your face. "You'd make in a night what you make in a week here, Mary, and you wouldn't be killing yourself with this." She gestured at the pile of sewing. You didn't answer right away. You'd been raised properly in a God-fearing home, but your parents were dead, your brothers scattered to the wind seeking work, and here you were, slowly starving to death 1 stitch at a time. The weight of that memory settles over you, and you feel yourself sinking a little deeper into the mattress. Your breathing slows naturally, in and out, just like that. The house is starting to wake up around you. You hear footsteps on the stairs, heavy ones, probably Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper. There's the clatter of coal being shoveled, a fire being lit downstairs in the parlor where the customers wait. The scent of coffee drifts up. Real coffee, not chicory. This house prides itself on small luxuries. Your roommate stirs, mumbling something in her sleep before turning over. Lily, she's called here. She's younger than you by a few years, maybe 19 to your 24, with auburn hair that the gentleman seemed to fancy. She came from a factory in Manchester, she told you once. The noise of the looms had made her partially deaf in one ear. Time to get up properly. You have routines to follow, expectations to meet. Mrs. Winters runs a tight ship, and tardiness isn't tolerated. The madam, Mrs. Cartwright to her face, though the girls call her Carty when she's not around, expects everyone downstairs and presentable by noon. The brothel operates on a precise schedule. Mornings are for cleaning, bathing, and rest. Afternoons see a few regular customers, businessmen on extended lunch breaks mainly. Evenings and nights are the busiest times, with the house often full until the early hours. But now, in this quiet morning moment, you take your time. You reach for the tin on the bedside table and remove the small lump of beeswax inside, warming it between your palms. You then smooth it over your chapped lips. Another small luxury. Mrs. Cartwright insists that the girls take care of themselves. "You're selling an illusion, girls," she often says. "Gentlemen don't want to see the reality of a working woman's life." You find yourself nodding slightly at the thought. Good advice, really. Most of the men who visit don't want reality. They want fantasy, escape, something different from their respectable wives and homes. Something that makes them feel special, or powerful, or simply seen. Standing up, you stretch fully, arms reaching toward the low ceiling, feeling the pleasant pull in your muscles. Your nightdress, a simple cotton affair, nothing like the silk and lace confections you wear for work, falls around your ankles as you move to the small wardrobe. During the day, when not entertaining, you wear ordinary clothes, a simple dress, practical shoes, nothing that would mark you out as different from any other working woman on the streets of London. That's important. While brothels themselves aren't illegal, public solicitation is. The police generally leave established houses alone, especially those that pay the expected bribes, but discretion is still necessary. You select a dark blue dress, slightly faded but well mended, and lay it on the bed. Getting dressed is a slower process than it will be later, when you might need to change quickly between customers. Now you can take your time, enjoying the routine of it. Stockings first, then petticoat, then corset, not tightly laced during the day, just enough to provide structure. As you dress, you think about the day ahead. Tuesday is usually quiet. There might be a few regulars in the afternoon. Mr. Phillips, the bank clerk who visits every other week and mainly wants to talk about his stamp collection. Or perhaps the nervous young man who gives his name as Smith and never stays longer than 15 minutes. Outside, the sounds of London grow louder as the morning advances. A group of children run past below the window, their shrill voices rising above the general din. A dog barks somewhere nearby. A street vendor begins his melodic call, "Knives to grind, knives to grind." The normality of it all still sometimes strikes you as strange. This life, this work that society condemns as the ultimate female degradation happens right alongside ordinary London life. The baker delivers fresh bread to the brothel just as he does to the respectable boarding house next door. The coal man, the ice man, the laundress, all come and go, providing the same services they provide to any household. You sit back down on the edge of the bed, taking a moment just to breathe, in through your nose, out through your mouth, nice and easy. That's it. There's a quiet knock at the door. "Hot water." "Miss," comes a voice. "Young Betsy, the maid of all work. She's only 13, too young for the house's main business." Mrs. Cartwright took her in when she found her begging on the street, half-starved. Now she helps the housekeeper, runs errands, and sleeps in a tiny room off the kitchen. In a few years, she'll likely join the other girls, but for now, she's protected, which is more than can be said for many children on London's streets. "Come in, Betsy," you call. The door opens and the girl enters, carrying a large jug of steaming water. Her face is freshly scrubbed, her brown hair neatly braided. "Morning, Miss Mary," she says cheerfully, pouring the hot water into your basin. "Cold one today. Mrs. Winters says there might be snow later." "Thank you, Betsy," you say, giving her a smile. "Had your breakfast yet?" "Yes, miss. Cook made porridge with treacle. There's coffee in the kitchen if you want some, and fresh bread, too. This is another thing that makes this house better than some. Regular meals, decent food. In the worst brothels, girls might go hungry if business is slow, or be fed scraps barely fit for consumption. Here, Mrs. Cartwright understands that healthy girls earn more money. Betsy leaves, and you wash properly with the hot water, enjoying the warmth on your skin. The routine is soothing. Face first, then neck, arms under your arms, and finally a quick rinse of your most intimate areas. Full bathing happens twice a week in this house, Wednesdays and Sundays, in the copper tub that's brought into the kitchen. It's more frequent than many respectable working-class women manage, actually. Once washed, you feel more human. You run a comb through your hair, dark brown, thick, reaching halfway down your back when loose. For daytime, you twist it into a simple knot at the nape of your neck. Later, for work, you'll style it more elaborately, perhaps with the artificial hairpiece that adds volume and curls. There's a small mirror propped on the dresser, its silver backing spotted with age. You check your reflection briefly. Your face is looking better than it did in your seamstress days. Regular food has filled out the hollows in your cheeks, added a healthier color to your skin. Your eyes, though, they've changed. More guarded now, more watchful. You've seen things, know things, that the innocent girl from the countryside never imagined. You shake off the moment of reflection. No use dwelling on such thoughts. Instead, you focus on finishing dressing, lacing your boots with practiced fingers, each movement precise and familiar. Settling into the rhythm of the task, your breathing naturally slows in and out, steady and calm. Fully dressed now, you're ready to face the day. Your first task will be breakfast, then helping with the general cleaning of the house. Each girl has assigned duties. Yours include dusting the parlor and polishing the glasses in the small bar area. Mrs. Cartwright believes idle hands lead to trouble, so even when not entertaining customers, the girls are kept busy. Lily finally stirs properly, sitting up with a yawn. "Morning," she mumbles, pushing her tangled hair from her face. "What time is it?" "Just past 7, you tell her. Plenty of time yet." She nods, stretching her arms above her head. "Had that dream again," she says. "The one about the seaside. Have you ever been, Mary? To the sea?" "Once," you say, remembering a rare family outing years ago. "Brighton, when I was small." "I'd like to go someday," Lily says, her voice wistful. "They say the air is different there, cleaner, that you can breathe proper. This is a common dream among the girls, saving enough to escape London, to start fresh somewhere else. Some manage it, most don't. The money that seems so good compared to other women's work still slips away, some to lodging and food, some to clothes and necessities for the job, some to small comforts and luxuries that make the life bearable. You will, you tell her, though you're not sure you believe it. Keep putting something aside each week, even just a shilling. It adds up. She nods, but you both know how hard it is to save. There's always something, a toothache needing treatment, a dress torn beyond mending, a friend in desperate need. Life has a way of consuming whatever small buffer you try to build. You feel a moment of heaviness at the thought, then consciously let it go. Your shoulders drop slightly as you exhale. "That's better. Just easy now. I'll see you downstairs," you tell Lily, who's finally getting up. "Don't be too long. Mrs. Winters was stomping about earlier, and you know what that means?" "She's in a mood," Lily agrees with a grimace. "I'll hurry." You leave the room, closing the door quietly behind you. The narrow hallway is dimly lit with worn carpet running its length. There are 4 other bedrooms on this floor, all similar to yours. Downstairs are the public rooms, the parlor where customers are received, a small dining room, the kitchen and servants' quarters at the back. The best bedroom, reserved for Mrs. Cartwright's personal use, is on the ground floor, allowing her to monitor comings and goings. The house itself is narrow but tall, squeezed between similar buildings on a side street. It's respectably maintained on the outside, with clean curtains in the windows and a freshly painted door. Nothing identifies it as a brothel. There's no red light, no obvious sign. Customers? Know to come here through word of mouth, through discreet advertisements in certain publications, through the network of cab drivers and hotel porters who receive commissions for directing gentlemen this way. As you descend the stairs, the smell of coffee grows stronger, mingling now with baking bread and frying bacon. Your stomach rumbles in response. The wooden stairs creak slightly underfoot, a homely, familiar sound. You run your hand along the banister, feeling its smoothness from years of similar touches. The house is warming up now as fires are lit in the main rooms. That persistent London chill is retreating, at least within these walls. You can hear the housekeeper's voice from the kitchen, giving instructions to the cook. The normal domestic sounds of any household beginning its day. And for now, in this moment, it could almost be any house, any life. There's a rhythm to the morning that's soothing in its predictability, a pattern that carries you forward, one step at a time, through each day. You feel your body settling into that rhythm, your breathing matching its gentle pace, in and out, easy and calm. You pause at the bottom of the stairs, taking a moment just to be. Your muscles feel loose and comfortable, your mind quiet. Despite everything, there's a certain peace in this moment, in the simple fact of being alive, of having survived another night in a city that devours so many. The kitchen door is open, warm light spilling into the hallway. You can see the cook at the stove, her broad back turned to you as she works. Betsy is setting the table in the corner, where the servants and girls eat together. Mrs. Winters is reading a letter, her spectacles perched on her nose, her gray hair neatly tucked under a cap. An ordinary scene. A moment of calm before the complex dance of the day begins. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs completely, and then release it slowly. Your shoulders drop, tension flowing away like water. You're ready now. You step forward into the kitchen's warmth, into the mingled scents of coffee and bread and wood smoke, into the quiet chatter of the beginning day. There's bacon frying in the pan, its rich aroma making your mouth water slightly. Your stomach gives another little rumble of anticipation. Morning. Mary, says the cook without turning around. She has an uncanny ability to identify each person by their footsteps. Sleep well? Well enough, you answer, moving to help Betsy with the table settings. The routine of it is comforting, the familiar weight of the plates, the precise arrangement of the cutlery. Your hands move automatically while your mind drifts, pleasant and unfocused. Outside, London continues to wake. A church bell rings in the distance, marking the hour. Voices call in the street, vendors, neighbors, children. The endless symphony of the city rises and falls like breath, in and out, like waves at that seaside Lily dreams of visiting. Rising and falling, a gentle rhythm that carries you along as you sink deeper into the familiar patterns of the day. your body relaxed and comfortable, your breathing steady and slow as you move around the warm kitchen, helping prepare for breakfast with the others. The smell of fresh bread grows stronger as the cook takes a loaf from the oven, its crust golden brown and crackling slightly as it cools. The kitchen table is large and rectangular, scarred with years of use. 8 chairs are squeezed around it, enough for the 5 girls currently working in the house, plus Mrs. Winters, Betsy, and Cook. Mrs. Cartwright takes her meals separately in her private sitting room, maintaining the distance that she believes necessary for proper management. You slip into your usual chair, feeling the smooth, worn wood beneath you. The seat has been polished by years of use, shaped by countless bodies before yours. There's something comforting about that continuity, that shared experience across time. You settle in, feeling the solid support beneath you. Cook brings over a large pot of porridge, setting it in the center of the table with a satisfying thud. It's good porridge, thick and creamy, made with milk rather than water, sweetened with a spoonful of treacle, another of the small luxuries that marks this house, as a cut above the most basic establishments. "Eat up while it's hot," Cook says, her broad face flushed from the stove's heat. She's a widow in her 50s, came to work here after her husband's death left her destitute. Never comments on the nature of the business, just cooks and keeps to herself, makes sure the girls eat properly, believes good food is the foundation of health. You help yourself to a generous bowl, the steam rising in fragrant curls. The first spoonful is hot and sweet on your tongue, the texture smooth and comforting. You close your eyes briefly, just enjoying the simple pleasure of good food when you're hungry. The other girls filter in gradually. First Emily, a petite blonde who's been here about 6 months. Then Sarah, older than most at nearly 30, with a no-nonsense attitude and a surprising talent for numbers. She helps Mrs. Cartwright with the accounts. Last is Josephine, the newest, still adjusting to the life, her eyes often red from private tears. Lily finally appears, hair hastily pinned up, still looking half asleep. She slips into the chair beside you just as Mrs. Winters begins serving the coffee. "Nearly missed breakfast," you murmur, passing her the porridge pot. "Worth it for an extra 10 minutes in bed," she whispers back with a small smile. The coffee here is another luxury. Real coffee, not the chicory substitute that most working-class households make do with. It's strong and hot, sweetened with sugar for those who want it. You cradle the cup in both hands, feeling its warmth seep into your fingers. Nice and cozy. The rich aroma rises with the steam, rich and slightly bitter. Breakfast is a mostly quiet affair. There's an unspoken rule against discussing business this early. Instead, the conversation drifts to ordinary topics. The weather. A funny story about the butcher's delivery boy slipping in the alley yesterday. Speculation about whether the greengrocer's wife is expecting again. Normal conversation. Everyday matters. The kind of talk that happens around thousands of breakfast tables across London every morning. This normalcy is important. A reminder that despite the nature of the work, this is also just a place where people live, eat, sleep, and go about their daily business. You feel yourself relaxing into this ordinary moment, your shoulders dropping slightly, your breathing deep and even. The food settles warm in your stomach, providing energy for the day ahead. You take another sip of coffee, savoring the rich bitterness. After breakfast, the day's chores begin. The house runs on a strict schedule with specific tasks assigned to each girl, not just for efficiency, but because Mrs. Cartwright believes that routine and responsibility help maintain order and prevent the chaos that plagues less well-run establishments. Today, your morning duties include dusting the parlor and polishing the glassware in the small bar area, simple, repetitive tasks that allow your mind to wander while your hands stay busy. There's something meditative about such work, the regular motion, the gradual transformation from dusty to clean, dull to shining. The parlor is the main public room of the house where customers are first received. It's decorated in a style that might be called respectable with hints of luxury. Solid furniture in dark wood, upholstered in red velvet that's slightly worn at the arms but still plush. Heavy curtains in a matching shade, tied back during the day to admit what little London sunlight filters through the perpetual haze of coal smoke. A few carefully chosen paintings on the walls, landscapes mostly, with one mildly suggestive classical scene featuring draped nymphs. Nothing too obvious, nothing that would immediately identify this as a brothel to a casual observer. That's deliberate. Maintaining a veneer of respectability protects everyone. If a police officer did enter, there would be nothing immediately incriminating to see, just a private home with several young women in residence. Suspicious, perhaps, but not definitively illegal. You begin your dusting, working methodically around the room, feather duster first for the larger surfaces, then a slightly damp cloth for the more detailed work. The familiar motions are soothing, requiring just enough attention to keep your mind occupied without demanding deep concentration. As you work, you can hear the house around you, Mrs. Winters instructing Betsy on the proper way to black the kitchen range, cook humming tunelessly as she kneads dough for the day's bread, Lily's light footsteps overhead as she makes the beds, ordinary domestic sounds that could belong to any household. The mantelpiece holds several ornaments, a china shepherdess, a small brass clock, a pair of decorative urns. You dust each carefully, replacing them in exactly the same positions. Mrs. Cartwright notices if things are moved even slightly. The clock ticks steadily, marking the peaceful morning rhythm. Through the window you can see a slice of London life. A maid beating a rug in the small yard behind the house next door. A cat picking its way fastidiously along a garden wall. A boy running with a message clutched in his hand. You move to the small bar in the corner of the room. It's not elaborate, just a cabinet containing glasses and a few bottles of spirits. Most customers are offered a glass of sherry or brandy when they first arrive. A social nicety, a way of easing the transaction. The glasses need polishing. They develop a film in London's sooty air even when not used. You take each one, breathing gently on it before rubbing with a soft cloth in circular motions. The glass makes a soft squeaking sound as it comes clean, reflecting the dim light in gleaming facets. The repetitive motion is almost hypnotic, round and round. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the movement, in as you begin the circle, out as you complete it, slow and steady. Your hands know just how much pressure to apply, enough to clean effectively without risking breaking the delicate crystal. Time passes peacefully as you work. The morning light shifts gradually, painting slow-moving patterns on the floor. Your mind drifts to pleasant, undemanding thoughts, the afternoon ahead. The parlor gleamed softly in the filtered morning light. You had finished polishing the last of the glasses, setting them neatly back into the cabinet. The house hummed around you, steady and familiar. There was always a rhythm to life here, A balance between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between the respectable veneer and the truth that lay beneath it. For all its complications, this place was home now. The rest of the morning passed with quiet efficiency. You moved from the parlor to the stair railings, rubbing beeswax into the wood until it shone with a warm glow. Upstairs, the sound of beds being made drifted down, fabric snapping briskly as sheets were tugged into place. Mrs. Winters bustled about, inspecting every corner, her voice sharp but never unkind. She was the enforcer of order, second only to Mrs. Cartwright herself. By midday, the house smelled of fresh bread and stewing mutton. Cook's work in the kitchen was tireless. She claimed food could mend spirits as well as bodies. A girl with an empty stomach, she said, was more likely to fall into despair. She kept you all fed, 3 meals a day, no matter what. In this city where poverty pressed like a weight on every doorstep, such consistency was no small blessing. You carried loaves from the cooling rack to the sideboard, the crust still warm under the cloth. Emily followed behind, humming as she placed out knives and plates for the midday meal. Her cheer was light, easy, though you knew it came from effort. Everyone here wore a kind of mask. At lunch, the girls gathered again. The mutton stew was hearty, thick with carrots and turnips. Conversation was gentle, never straying to the darker corners of your lives. I heard the milliner down the street is hiring for apprentices, Emily said, her spoon tracing idle circles in her bowl. You'd hate millinery, Sarah replied dryly. All those feathers and needles. You're too restless to sit still that long. Emily laughed, and Lily rolled her eyes. Josephine, quiet as usual, barely touched her bread. She was still learning to eat among others without shrinking into herself. You watched her carefully, sliding a slice of buttered bread closer when she thought no one would notice. Sarah caught your eye, nodded slightly. She had a way of observing without judgment, of noticing details others missed. Perhaps it came from her work with Mrs. Cartwright on the accounts. Numbers, after all, required attention and balance. By late afternoon, the rhythm shifted. Customers began to trickle in, well-dressed men with polished boots, the smell of tobacco clinging to their coats. They entered through the parlor, where the veneer of respectability was carefully maintained. Each was offered a glass of sherry or brandy, conversation light, harmless, as though this were no different than a private social call. Mrs. Cartwright herself rarely appeared, preferring to remain in her private sitting room. But her presence was everywhere. She had rules. No drunkenness, no violence, no bargaining once a price was set. She believed her house should be known as orderly, safe, and clean. In her mind, discipline was the only thing that separated this establishment from the dangerous chaos of others. You moved quietly through the rooms, helping prepare, fetching, straightening. In small ways, you kept the house running, just as the others did. Each task, however small, was part of the greater whole. That evening, Josephine faltered. A gentleman had requested her, drawn perhaps to her delicate features and timid air. But when she entered the parlor, her hands trembled as she offered him wine. You saw the panic rising in her eyes, the way her breath grew shallow. Before anyone else noticed, you slipped beside her, steadying the tray. "Breathe," you whispered softly. "Just breathe. He's only a man."
She blinked at you, startled, but the reminder anchored her. She managed to smile faintly, enough to carry her through the moment. Later, when the customer had gone upstairs, she clung to your arm in the hallway, whispering a shaky thank you. In that instant, you understood what the house truly was. Not just a place of business, but a fragile community. Each of you leaned on the others in quiet, invisible ways.
The hours passed. The house filled with muffled footsteps, with the distant creak of beds, with the clink of glasses and low murmur of voices. From the kitchen came the constant hum of cook's efforts, preparing late-night broth for when the girls returned weary. In the parlor, you sat for a moment alone, candlelight flickering against the brass clock on the mantel. The room smelled faintly of brandy and roses, of wax polish and smoke. The silence was not empty. It was filled with echoes of everything that had happened within these walls. You thought of Josephine's trembling hands, of Emily's laughter, of Sarah's cool, steady gaze. You thought of Lily, who often pretended not to care but leaned against you when she was tired, seeking comfort without words. Here, in this unlikely household, there was something like family. Not the kind spoken of in polite company, but something nonetheless real, forged in necessity and endurance. The days slid into one another, each carrying its own rhythm. There were quarrels, of course, moments when tempers flared. There were nights when the work felt heavier than usual, when exhaustion clung like soot in the lungs. Yet there were also nights of laughter, of shared jokes over bread and coffee, of small kindnesses unnoticed by anyone outside the house. Winter deepened, coal smoke thickening in the air, frost edging the windows in delicate patterns. Inside, the fire kept the rooms warm, though the walls sometimes rattled with the wind. Cook prepared stews thicker, bread denser, to fight off the cold. On Sundays, when business slowed, Mrs. Cartwright allowed an hour of free time in the parlor. Emily sometimes played tunes on the small upright piano, cheerful little melodies that carried through the halls. Josephine learned embroidery, her fingers gradually steadying with each stitch. Sarah kept the books even on her day of rest, muttering at the columns of numbers with both irritation and satisfaction. You found your place among them, your own tasks familiar now, your presence woven into the fabric of the household. One morning, a letter arrived for Sarah. She rarely received correspondence, and the neat handwriting on the envelope drew immediate curiosity. She opened it at the breakfast table, her face tightening as she read. Without a word, she folded the paper and tucked it into her bodice. For hours, she said nothing, though her movements were sharper, her tone clipped. Finally, that evening, she confided in you while you polished glasses. "My brother is ill," she said simply. "Consumption. They say he may not last the winter." There was little to be done. The cost of doctors was beyond reach. Yet she carried the weight with quiet dignity, her back straighter than usual. The other girls sensed her grief, softening their voices, offering her extra bread or tea without remark. In moments like these, you saw most clearly the unspoken truth. You were all bound together, not just by work, but by survival. Not all was sorrow. Some evenings, the house brimmed with laughter.
Emily once convinced Lily to try on one of Cook's aprons and parade about the parlor as though she were mistress of the house. The sight of her mock-serious expression sent everyone into helpless giggles. Even Mrs. Winters, usually stern, cracked a reluctant smile. For a few minutes, the air was filled with joy, untainted by anything else. These moments mattered. They were threads of light woven into darker fabric, proof that even in difficult places, life could still be sweet. Weeks turned into months. The seasons shifted. London remained the same. Gray streets, crowded alleys, the endless fog. But inside the house, small changes took root. Josephine grew more confident, her tears less frequent. Sarah's brother passed quietly in the spring, and though grief weighed on her, she bore it with strength, the household rallying around her. Emily continued to dream of other futures, though she never left. Lily grew more responsible, slowly shedding the careless air she once carried. Even Mrs. Winters softened slightly, her edges less sharp, as though the rhythm of the household had smoothed her over time. And you found yourself woven so deeply into their lives that you could no longer imagine leaving.
At last, one late evening, after the house had quieted, you sat again in the parlor. The fire burned low, casting shadows that danced on the velvet curtains and the polished brass. The clock ticked steadily, marking time in its patient way. You thought of everything this house had been: a refuge, a prison, a place of laughter, of sorrow, of ordinary mornings and extraordinary nights. You thought of the girls who lived here, each carrying her own story, her own burdens and dreams. Life would go on. Tomorrow there would be breakfast again, porridge and coffee, chatter about weather and neighbors. There would be dusting and polishing, customers and accounts, laughter and tears. The rhythm would continue, as it always had. For now, though, there was only quiet. You leaned back in your chair, letting the warmth of the fire seep into your bones. Your eyes drifted closed, the weight of the day settling into your body like a heavy, comforting blanket. And so, friends, the story is now complete. Close your eyes and sleep. Good night and happy night.